Well, Apple is sitting here on my lap. She has decided to join me in my office. And if you see something crawling around out of the picture, just the top of a dog, that would be Bootsy. Bootsy. Bootsy, come here. Just come up on my knee so everybody can see you. Say hello. Hey, there's Bootsy. Bootsy actually loves to keep me company just by sitting down at my feet. So I'll let her do that. So welcome to edition number 2 of Ask the Breeder. I've really had an overwhelming response, so I think I'm going to have to do quite a few of these segments. Thank you, everyone, for submitting questions. I appreciate it. And I've gotten some really good questions, so let's get started right away and let's see what questions we can answer. My first question comes from Paws Up. And Paws Up asks, what is the typical Cavalier temperament? Are they considered a working breed? Do they have some sort of a function? Well, Cavaliers are not considered a working breed. Actually, if you've seen AKC dog shows, you'll know that there are 7 groups of breeds, and Cavaliers are not in the working group. Cavaliers are in the toy group, and pretty much every breed in the toy group is bred for companionship. So their function is to be a companion dog, and therefore they bond very strongly with humans. So that's why Apple always needs to be up on my lap while I'm doing these videos. I'm thinking of calling her Lapple instead. What do you think? Lapple?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. Anyway, their temperament is that they are active, shake hands, active dogs who, because they have a somewhat of a sporting background in terms of being descendant from breeds that were involved in birding, fetching prey that was killed. They are active, they're very graceful, they like to move, they like to run around, but primarily they are unafraid of meeting new people, and they are very gentle and affectionate. And that's exactly what you should expect from a Cavalier. My second question comes from Carter, who asks, when do we start our puppies on soft food, and is there a specific brand that we recommend? When we transfer the puppies from their mother's milk nursing to soft food and then eventually whatever type of food we're going to be feeding them for the rest of their lives, that's called weaning. And we usually start the weaning process somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks of age. It depends on how quickly they're growing, on how full of milk their mother is, on how willing she is to nurse them, and how frequently she nurses them. It's a gradual process because when we start the weaning process, they're still going to be, you see my hand there? They're still going to be nursing from their mother regularly. And eventually, we cut down the amount of nursing, we increase the amount of food, and they are eventually completely weaned from their mother. I have weaned puppies as early as 3 weeks when the mother was having a problem and was running out of milk. I do not like to let it go more than 6 weeks of age, although they will still continue to nurse for some time. And they'll keep trying to nurse as long as the mother has milk in there. As far as the brand is concerned, in the old days, I used to use just raw chopped meat. It worked quite well. I don't worry about the bacteria in the chopped meat because puppies have such a short digestive system. It's out before the bacteria that might be contained in raw meat has any chance to affect them. And I never had a problem with that, although I suppose there could be a problem. So it's much safer to use a commercial food, and there are several available on the market right now. The one that I like to use is made by Royal Canin, but I'm sure there are others that are equally as effective. It's a soft mousse, and it's made for starting puppies. They love the taste. It's very soft, so they don't need any teeth to chew on anything. Let me show you a little quick video of how we start them on it. This little puppy is about to get solid food for the very first time in her life. I just hold it in front of her on that little tiny espresso spoon, let her taste it, let her lick it. Once she got the taste for it, I take a smaller amount on the espresso spoon. I scrape it up on her palate so that it goes into her mouth, much like you would do with a human baby. She's quite sloppy about it, as you can see, which is why I'm wearing an apron. And I give her maybe 3 or 4 of those little tiny espresso spoons at the most. And that will get her well on her way to becoming fully weaned. So then as time goes by, we transfer from the spoon feeding to feeding them the mousse in a dish. And then after that, we use some puppy kibble, which we soften with hot water. And it turns into a mush. And we put a little bit of the mousse on top and mix a little bit of the mousse into it. And as time continues to go by, we give them more of the kibble and less of the mousse, and we soften it less and less until they are eating just like adults. Vicky asks the third question for today, and that would be, what is the standard height and weight for a Cavalier? As adults, Cavaliers, ideally, according to the breed standard, which lays out exactly what the breed should be like, their weight as adults should be between 13 and 18 pounds. Last time I weighed Apple, I think she was about 16, 17 pounds, which is perfectly ideal. The girls are usually a little bit lighter than the boys. So you might have a boy who is 18 pounds. Sometimes they go over, but it says in the breed standard that slight variations are permitted, but they should be generally within that range. As far as height is concerned, if you stand a dog up and you measure, well, she's not going to stand, and you measure from the ground up to the withers at the top of the shoulder blade, if you run your hand along the spinal cord, you will feel a little bump, which is the top of the spinal cord. That's the withers. It's right behind the neck. And if you measure from the ground up to the withers, they should be approximately 12 inches high. And I think Apple has had it. Great Dane asks Great Dane, well, these are Cavaliers, sorry. Great Dane says that he or she has a 1-year-old Cavalier and a new puppy who was brought in at 8 weeks old. And the older Cavalier that they already had started to regress after the puppy was brought in. So Great Dane would like to know, is there something we should be doing? How long should it take them to bond? Well, I've found that puppies tend to bond with the adults in the home very, very quickly, like almost instantly. The adults may take a little bit of time to get accustomed to the puppies, but because that Cavalier temperament is supposed to be friendly and unafraid, they should not have any problems welcoming a puppy into the fold. As far as what to do, well, there are a couple of problems here. I would not have recommended taking in an 8-week-old. I actually, when we breed puppies, do not allow any of my puppies to leave this home until they're at least 10 weeks old, and even 12 weeks old is preferable. The potty training at 8 weeks is very involved compared to the potty training a couple of weeks later. That's actually when we start their crate training. You should see my crate training video if you have not yet seen that. So we start our puppies at 8 weeks in the crate, and then if you bring home a 10 or 12-week-old puppy, you use the crate to continue to train them. If either of the dogs is regressing and not doing well in terms of crate training and learning to potty outside where they belong, I've always maintained that what you have to do is take that process, backtrack a little bit. So if the 1-year-old has the free run of the house, you temporarily take that away. you put them in a crate for a short amount of time. Let them fall asleep in the crate. When they wake up, take them outside. Make sure that they get to do whatever they need to do outside. Bring them back in. Restrict the areas in the house that they're allowed to be in. Stay with them. Make sure they're supervised. And give them a few hours. And that's for a 1-year-old. If the young puppy regresses, go right back to the very beginning, where they are basically either in the crate or outside, or you're holding them, and then start to progress very, very slowly from there. Probably the most unique question that I have received, I don't know that I have an answer to this, comes from Jay, and Jay wants to know, do Cavaliers have a distinctive smell? My own opinion is that pretty much every dog is going to smell if they're not clean, or if they've been exposed to prolonged periods out in the rain or bad weather. That will give them a kind of a distinctive dog odor, not a distinctive Cavalier odor. I'm actually accustomed to smelling dogs that smell really nice, like the shampoo that I use, because we try to bathe them and keep them groomed on a regular basis so that we don't have any other smell. But if any of you out there have Cavaliers and have noticed that there is a smell that's different from other breeds, I'd be very interested in hearing that. And my final question comes from Autumn Stanley. Autumn Stanley wants to know, what made us pick Cavaliers as a breed? Well, it was almost by accident when just before my wife and I met each other, which was, we met each other in January of 1980. In late 1979, my wife Katie, her father was working for a man who had several dogs, some big ones and one Cavalier, and the big ones used to pick on the Cavalier all the time. And it got to the point where they injured that Cavalier and made it impossible for him to keep him, so he offered the dog to my father-in-law. Well, my father-in-law already had 2 of his own dogs, but he said, but you know, my daughter lost the dog that she's had since she was a teenager, and it would be really nice if I could replace that dog with this one. So is it all right if I give it to my daughter? And the owner said, sure, that's fine. Now, we didn't know what it was. Very few people in the United States knew what a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel was in the late 1970s. He was a great companion. He would never leave your side. Even if you didn't have him on a lead, he would be with you all the time. And he was very happy to play games. I loved playing hide and seek with him. So when I met Katie, he became our dog. This is one of my favorite pictures of Winston. That is me in the middle, believe it or not, and our son, who is now 55 years old. That'll give you an idea how old this picture is. But we were at a St. Patrick's Day parade, and Winston was really enjoying himself here. One day we met somebody who had a dog that looked just like him. We called him Winston, and we met a dog that looked just like him. And we said, hey, that looks like our dog. What is that? And the owner told us it was a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, put us in touch with a breeder. And it was not until 1985 that we actually could afford to buy a Cavalier puppy. And that, of course, since we already had Winston, that was Churchill. Speaking of Churchill, I have a video coming out very soon, maybe tomorrow, which is all about going back to vintage videos of Churchill, so don't miss that one. Now I have lots more questions, so we'll be doing more Ask the Breeders. But in the meantime, love those questions. Thank you so much, everybody. Apple, come up here. Apple. Yes. Say goodbye to everybody, Apple.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Bye.